traditional Saturday event. For some people, this is the first event in their life. For some people are much more experienced. But I would say that it doesn't matter at all. Sometimes the newcomers push forward. We shall see what comes out of it. The only things I would like you to keep in mind, you all know about it. First of all, what you need, number one, is self-confidence. You are very well prepared. We all know it. You exactly know what to do. Don't look at others. Think about your role on this stage. Your stage is here. Okay, just right in the middle of this red carpet. The second thing you should remember, you know it, if you want people to enjoy you,
you have to enjoy people.
This is also good, but you have to enjoy yourself in the first place, and then enjoy all the rest, of course. Point number 3. We have honorable members of the jury here. Okay? And these are the native speakers who don't know Russian language, and they will be judging you, and they will be asking you questions. Answering the questions, what should you remember? The worst thing you can do is keep silent. Speak out. Be very friendly to each other. Enjoy the day, enjoy the event, enjoy everything going on. You are getting wonderful, unbelievable experience today.
So the talk of the town today is 2020, again. And I'm going to say something which is a bit odd, and maybe you won't agree with it, but I believe 2020 is a great year. Does anybody agree? Raise your hand, please.
Sort of.
What are you doing, freaks? Okay.
I slept a lot.
Well, that's great. Anyway, 2020, for me personally, was a piece of cake. And the reason for that is not particularly great. You see, in 2019, in summer of 2019, both my grandmother and grandfather passed away. Later in January 2020, my last grandmother passed away as well, and in spring 2020, my uncle followed them as well. As you might imagine, after all of that, you won't be caring about sitting at home much. But that made me think. It made me think about donuts, and not the sweet kind. The diagram of happiness and, well, bad stuff. In this case, happiness is the whole of the donut, and, you know, the bad stuff is everything else. And that stuff is proportionate. To show you how it works, I'm going to involve a novel written by Erich Maria Remarque, Heaven Has No Favorites. We're going to be talking about a particular character named Lillian. She's a great lady, honestly. When I was reading the book, I fell in love with that character from the first line. But despite her great personality, she experienced a terrible childhood. You see, she grew up during the wartime in Belgium, in ruins of former cities, scavenging for food and shelter. Logically, the bad part grows enormously, and we get a bit of a different picture when the good stuff is tiny and we are experiencing, say, cold, murder, all that terrible stuff in our lives, and the bad circle expands drastically. What happens after is that happiness begins to grow. The reason for that is quite simple, actually. It's adaptation. When you don't have any primary things, such as food, shelter, or safety, you will try to seek them, and more things will become more valuable. For instance, for her, at that point of time, things such as a damp basement with mossy walls, or a crumb of bread which was quite moldy already, is a gift of God. And we get this kind of picture, which looks like a bagel more than a donut. But as time goes on, she's moved to a sanatorium up in the Alps. And there she feels ecstatic. We get a completely different picture. The bad stuff shrunk instantly. And it's actually one of the laws of the donut. One of the laws of development follows that the bad stuff is completely random. It's like a deck of cards. You can get a joker and an ace of spades, or you can get this crap. So logically, the stuff kind of changed, and the bad is this tiny circle right here. You know, she's well fed, she's experiencing a spirit of ecstasy has fallen onto her, alright? Because when you were searching for food a few days ago, you're going to be ecstatic about a meal which is free. So we have a different picture when the good is outside and the bad is in the middle. This is ecstasy, this is happiness practically. But as time goes on, we get a different picture. She gets used to all these conveniences. She gets used to being healthy and looked after, and we get this picture. When the bad is once again bigger than the good. This is actually goes with adaptation, once again. That stuff is everywhere. And if you learn skills, you're going to be adapting to them. As a person who plays guitar, I can tell you that when I started playing on metal strings, it was as painful as hell. And my fingers were sore all the time. But as the time went on, they became harder, and I don't experience any pain anymore. Same goes for intellectual skills, such as languages. At first, you look at all these grammar, rules, and all that stuff, and you think, how do I use this stuff? Like, what is this? What's the point? But after a while, you start to listen for these structures, and you understand where they are, and what words have certain colors and usages. So the same goes for happiness. You see, when you go from something like this to something like a bagel, all right? It's a bit of a clumsy bagel, that is. So when you go from there to a different position, your happiness or adaptation, which is in the middle, will change casually while this stuff is random. So the key to happiness, in my personal opinion, would be this arrow, moving up and down, from bad to good, from good to bad, challenging yourself to never reach the end point, and believe me, you don't want to be here for sure, is the key to happiness. And this is exactly why 2020 was great. We are used to this stuff. We were experiencing these changes throughout. We were wearing masks, using hand sanitizers, and we adapted to it. So keep on challenging yourself. Keep on adapting, forcing yourself to adapt. And this is the only way you can be happy. Thank you.
My idea we're spreading is that happiness and depression are not two complete polar opposites, but rather two similar in many ways emotions. Do you ever look up into the sky, see the moon, and think, wow, I can't believe we can only see one side of it. If only we could see more. I for sure do. But we all know that the two sides are completely the same, the only difference being how we see them. So what do we associate the colors black and white, the colors of the moon with? Maybe evil and good, or maybe even happiness and sadness. In that case, the two must be complete polar opposites. But is that really true? Is depression, which in this case I mean as a synonym for sadness, really the opposite of happiness? From a scientific standpoint, low levels of serotonin, the hormone that stabilizes our emotions and causes us to be happy, can cause different mental illnesses such as depression and anxiety. But on the other hand, the two emotions are similar in many ways. For example, both of them are very intense feelings that can last a very long time. And too much of both can lead to severe health problems. For example, in the case of serotonin or happiness, it can cause very awful seizures, and too much of sadness can cause depression. And to prove my point, I'll tell you a story when I felt both emotions and yet neither at the same time, and I could barely differentiate the two. I was celebrating New Year's with my family, and I was very excited for all the new events that might surprise me this year, probably because it was the beginning of 2020. But at the same time, I was very devastated and sad because of the end of such a wonderful year. But surprisingly, at that time, I couldn't tell the difference between the two emotions. It was only later that I realized that they were two separate feelings. And this led me to believe that happiness and sadness are just like our moon. We see one in a very bright light and the other in complete darkness, and then they switch. And I believe that both emotions are not completely pure, so there is a gray area between them. And I associate this gray area with a pink moon, which is, or a strawberry moon as some people say, very romantic and poetic. And this moon appears once in 200 years between a solar and a lunar eclipse. And a lot of people and a lot of cultures associate this moon with luck or maybe even evil. So next time we're feeling sad, we should just think of our sadness as happiness, but in a dark light. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon. Have you ever thought what makes us happy? Well, a person's happiness is formed due to numerous factors, such as art, cinematography, bloggers, social networks, and finally, advertising. Let me talk about advertising. Advertising is everywhere. It is what you eat, what you read, what you watch, and what you wear. Our economy thrives on you, persuading to buy more and more and more, even though you don't need any more. The goal of advertising is simple: to sell a product, to make you say yes. That is why advertisers use a variety of techniques to convince people to buy more products and services. Association is one of the most basic techniques used in advertising. For example, the image of pure alpine meadows is widely used in the commercials of the washing powder Tide. They claim, "We have preserved the untouched purity and freshness of the alpine nature for you in this package." The majority of commercials claim that if you don't buy their product, you are not going to be rich enough, smart enough, or happy enough. Well, for instance, one of those therapy ads is connected with Coca-Cola. It describes how difficult it is to be a parent, and on the contrary, how easy it is to drink Coca-Cola, which can solve all your troubles. As you see, all commercials are based on a totally ideal world where people don't have any worries and are always happy and positive. Actually, all advertisements simulate true happiness during success. Every day, people become victims of social advertising. At first, I thought it's not about me, but then I realized that I was wrong. Last month, when I came home from school, I found out that I needed to do loads of housework. Suddenly, I saw an advertisement of Mr. Proper, a multi-surface cleaner which promised to help me all my chores 2 times faster. Of course, I ordered this product. When it arrived, I was so happy because I wanted to run my errands as quickly as possible. However, my joy didn't last long because I understood that it was totally the same as other all-purpose cleaners such as Mr. Muscle or Cillit. That was my experience, and I'm totally sure that thousands of people experienced the same disappointment. By the way, did you know that some information that is used in the advertising can be misleading and even harmful? Well, in many commercials, chocolate bars are associated with a paradise delight. However, in the 1960s, the Sugar Association paid 3 Harvard professors $6,500 for the scientific articles that sugar consumption does not affect a risk of heart diseases. As a result, using this wrong information, many sugar companies made $1 billion profit. Unfortunately, consumers who bought and keep buying these products face obesity and heart attacks. To sum up, I would like to state that the main aim of all commercials is to sell a product, no matter how useful or useless it may be. This is why many tricks are created. In many commercials, happiness is linked to a pleasure that a promoted product brings. However, no wonder happiness can't be bought. Happiness is rather the achievement of harmony with the inner and outer world, a positive balance of life. Please, be careful while watching a commercial and think twice before spending money on the product. I'm sure we can be happy for free. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening. My name is Chloe. I guess that doesn't really matter because in Instagram, people know me as Chlopish. Maybe there are some followers. Or maybe you want to know how many likes I have on posts. Or comments, or just reposts, or... Well, it doesn't matter at all. But I'm popular. Maybe. What does it mean to be popular? Well, I think that a popular person is someone who is admired, appreciated, and loved by their peers. It's easy to think that once you're popular, your life becomes perfect and everything, including happiness, comes easily. That's not true. Have you ever heard of the saying, happiness is your choice? I consider that everything depends on the decisions that you make. Moreover, popularity attracts attention. You're noticed more, you're judged more. All your faults are observed more, and popularity is such a competitive thing. Every day, every single day, you need to perform your best. I have an example. The greatest actress of 20th century and integral part of the modern culture. Millions of young actresses and just ordinary girls still want fame as hers. Have you ever heard of her? Marilyn Monroe. She smiled at the public, but neither her fame nor her fans or even best psychiatrists to help her with her all-consuming depression. She died because she attempted suicide. She was barely 36 years old, and she was lonely because of the weight of her childhood traumas and failures. As I said, I have a blog on Instagram, and I have this diagram. It shows my followers and how much happy I was when I gained popularity and people, fans. I was depressed, but people said that I was interesting. And you know, if I was interesting then how lucky I am to be boring now. Yes, that's Chlopish. But maybe you want to know Chloe. Once my mother said to me, popularity is when other people like you, but happiness is when you like yourself.
We all see happiness as something distant. When we all get rich, find love or a new job, as something that we can't touch. But what if I told you that we can actually measure happiness? Yes, just like measuring the volume of a liquid with a measuring cup. Every year, an agency called Gallup measures the level of happiness around the world. They do this using two methods. The first one is by asking respondents about their recent experiential moments, or in short, what emotions they felt since they woke up. And the second method is by asking respondents to rate their life and overall level of happiness on a scale of 1 to 10. And now the most interesting question. Which country do you think is the happiest? Maybe it's the USA or Luxembourg, the country with the wealthiest residents. Surprisingly enough, it's actually Paraguay, one of the poorest and most unequal countries on the Latin American continent. Western countries which focus on the economy tend to be less happy. During my research, I came to the conclusion that the overall wealth or size of the economy doesn't quite correlate with the level of happiness. For example, Russia, the 11th biggest economy in the world, is actually happier than Japan, the 3rd biggest economy in the world. Gallup themselves claim that certain destabilizing events is what influences these results. For example, Brexit in the UK or protests in Belarus create a negative trajectory. Are you happy right now? No? Maybe it's because we're having a stressful TED Talk. Determining how happy we are every day is vital for our well-being. Before my speech, I measured the level of happiness of my friends, my family, and the jury. The average is 6. I think we all can agree that there's room for
Out
growth.
of 10?
Out of 10,
Uh-huh.
I think we all can agree that there's room for growth. If we can find out how happy we are every day, then we can become happier and find out what's the reason for this. Being able to keep up with a statistic is a blessing that will help us many times in the future and make our school or other collectives a better, more welcoming place.
No. Why are you so confused? Don't you know pet language? Oh, obviously not pet people. Alright, now in English from the very beginning. A question to everyone. Do you have pets?
Yes.
Well, I guess half of you do. Now please tell me if your pets bother you a lot. Well, as a pet person myself, I can tell that the situations when my pets irritate me are very rare. In fact, these tiny clusters of cuteness make me overflow with happiness. That's why I don't get annoyed by them. The role of pets doesn't end there. Having a little body by your side may cure some serious mental diseases. For example, there was an experiment with 2 groups of people who suffered from depression. The people from the first group got some pets to take care of. Several months later, medical studies showed that depression levels in the first group were much lower. But why does it happen so? Firstly, getting a pet involves getting a lot of new activities, such as walking your pet, feeding it, and training it. Most of these activities include physical movement, which improves the levels of blood circulation, makes you healthier, and therefore happier. Secondly, pets give their owner sense of pride and dignity. That's why the hormones of mood such as serotonin start generating. As pets affect our mood and self-esteem, could they replace normal friends? Guess not. We still need a genuine, understanding, and caring friend for life. However, those people whose communication is limited by mental issues, such as anxiety or antisocial behavior, may consider pets as their only friends. Of course, they won't give the perfect feeling of friendship, but they will definitely make these introverts more secure. For example, I myself am a very shy person who is not a good mixer. I find it difficult to start a conversation with strange or unknown people. I feel very bad about it. I felt almost helpless before I got my first 2 chinchillas. After that, I started getting along with people, and now I easily can start a conversation with new people. All in all, pets are definitely a great source of happiness. If you are an introvert, you should get a pet to feel more self-confident and less anxious about conversations. Sorry, I feel that my owner just fell asleep. I got to wake them up so they can give me some food. So please, ask the questions faster. I really need to do that.
Every day we fight for career growth. We do our best to accomplish all our goals. We try to become more visible and popular. But do you know that there are studies that suggest that accomplishments have just a little effect on our feeling of happiness? Scientists of Harvard University have tracked the lives of 724 men for 75 years, year after year, asking them about their work, home lives, health, and dreams. As these young men became adults, each followed a unique path, becoming factory workers, doctors, lawyers, and even the President of the United States. The results of the study are that It's not accomplishments that make us happy. It is the relationships that bring happiness to one's life. Despite the fact that most of us live surrounded by many other people, we nevertheless often experience loneliness. Loneliness makes our life meaningless, sometimes turning it into a continuous torture. There is an opinion that being lonely we can improve and become stronger. It can be the key to development. And relationships have no guarantees. They're complex, confusing, and require a constant effort. It's a lifetime's work. However, I believe that we need at least one living being to share the life journey. I personally suffer from excellent student syndrome and perfectionism. In the fall of 2020, I had anxiety, I was unmotivated and depressed, and that wasn't due to the fact that I was unable to do sums or to speak English well. And do you know what helped me when I felt really, really bad? I had a lot of communication, and I helped people. Not everyone realizes how wonderful it is to give and share. Researchers confirm that the fastest way to happiness is not to focus on yourself, but to focus on others and their needs. There is a good idea to be kinder to people. Help with things, money, or share your time. You can also keep a gratitude diary and write about who or what brings you joy. Close people, delicious food, your favorite songs, films, and books. And the fastest way to happiness is to say or to hear thank you. So, thank you for your attention.
I will quickly start from my questions, not to let you to ask me. Have you ever thought what knowledge you really lack? What education might help you, your friends, or relatives to understand each other better? Maybe psychology or management? Well, no. How do you think? Is there a way young folks can learn about venereal disease before encountering it? I'm talking about sex education. Well, what I mean by that, that's not so much about body structure, let's leave it to science lessons, but mostly about how it all works, starting from hormones to relationships. I don't make you to immediately change the educational system, adding their sex education and cramming people with intimate information about everyone. No. I just want to encourage kids and parents to think about this theme more freely. And I will hope you will believe me and I will prove my point of view. Firstly, let's create a chain of actions. At first, you learn about your body, why and how it works. Then you realize why you and others might act weird, not because people are egoistic nerds, but because they have a hormone storm in their bodies, for example, if we talk about teenagers. As a result, you won't be obsessed with these problems about acting weird. You will find new aims in your life and become happier. Secondly, I will give you some statistics. As a result of the survey Living Well Index conducted by the Oxford National Center, that was discovered that people having quality sexual life are reporting 38% higher level of happiness overall. That's remarkable, isn't it? But leave all the vulgar thoughts and let's look more globally now. Just think how many world issues it would solve only by adding sex education to the educational system. If we understood the gender mentality better, maybe the words homophobia or sexism would not exist. People would understand the equality between them, their feelings and motivations. Actually, sexual life is one of the most important spheres of human life, on a par with career and health. However, we are still ashamed to talk about it, and that really upsets me. And I don't get it, I don't understand how the theme that concerns all of us, that we all face problems with, be a taboo. And I heard a lot of stories when a girl graduating from school, so she is already 18 years old, knows nothing about sex and stuff about hormones. And her parents are old-fashioned accountants who never talked with her about it. and now she's being thrown into the real world full of nightclubs, rapists, and expired contraceptives. How should she try to survive without any knowledge? I don't know either. I will repeat. I understand that changing educational system might be theoretical, but I would like to at least encourage kids and parents to think about this theme more freely. You know, getting sex education in childhood or in our teenage years is about our personal safety. It is about health through knowledge of our bodies. It is about making questions and getting answers to the themes which are not shameful at all. And in the long run, it is about our general happiness. Thank you.
Hello. Traveling makes us happier. The most evident reason why is the new experiences. Besides, traveling makes us calmer. There is a survey that was conducted by the Global Commission on Aging and the US Travel Association that showed that 89% of people see a significant decrease in their stress level after a journey. Besides, there is also an interesting survey that was conducted by Booking.com in 17 countries that showed that 49% of people believe that a journey brings them more happiness than their wedding day did. Now you can see that the true key to happiness is traveling. Now you can say, sounds good, but she's being unrealistic. I can't travel often. I don't have enough money. I also have a job, which means that I don't have enough free time. Some of you may also add, oh, traveling means packing bags, booking tickets. It is so stressful. Moreover, it's the coronavirus pandemic in the world. Even if I had the time and money, I wouldn't be able to travel anywhere. What's my key to happiness then? Well, then you can go for a walk. And I'm not joking. Just going for a walk has a bigger positive impact on you than it may seem. The fact is that our body needs oxygen very much. An increased oxygen intake will improve our heart rate and blood pressure. It will also strengthen our immune system. In addition, it will help us sleep better. Moreover, an increased oxygen intake will increase the release of brain chemical serotonin, which is responsible for the feeling of happiness. Now you can say, well, sounds good, but walking is just too boring for me. I've seen all the interesting places in my city. What do I do now? Well, then you can go to a park. Then the effect of the fresh air will be increased. But if you prefer walking around buildings, you can try going to places that aren't considered interesting. I enjoy walking around the place where I live, and I don't live in the city center. However, I found a lot of interesting small things. I found 2 fountains, very cozy courtyards, and a beautiful red school. Besides, I never told you you can go for a walk with a friend. Going for a walk with a friend is a great opportunity to meet without visiting places that require spending money. Well, my other advice on making walking more interesting is paying attention to the people around you. It can be weird. Take a look at my bag. I love it. It has the shape of a coffin and it even has skulls on it. It's my favorite bag. So once I was walking with it, and then a man stopped me. He started speaking to me. He said, oh, walking with such bags is a sin. You will die. I didn't know how to react to that, so I just smiled, nodded my head, and went away. Well, I promise other people can be more pleasant. Once, I was walking with my friend. We decided to stop to take a photo of her. She put her backpack on the ground. Then, an old lady came to us and said, how could you do that to your backpack? I would never do it to my backpack. This is my backpack for Richards. She went away. It was weird, though funny. So what I wanted to say is that you should pay attention to the small things around you to make walking more interesting. What I'm coming to is that traveling makes your life more interesting and a little bit better even if it is a journey to the nearest courtyard. Thank you.
Do you feel unmotivated, tired, or depressed, and don't know what to do about it? Maybe you started feeling this way only recently. Well, if you do, you're not alone. Nowadays, because of a global pandemic, people have to stay at home. Moreover, they worry about their health a lot. This increases feelings of anxiety and boredom, alongside with many other depressive feelings. Besides, the satisfaction went down drastically in nearly every European country. Realizing this can probably make you less anxious about yourself, as you realize that you're not alone. However, I'm more than sure that each of you wants to make your life even better. So, listen up. Think about your working area. How do you feel when you think of it? Are you stressed or annoyed? How often do you treat yourself with something nice? Do you look after yourself when you work from home? I think the answers to these questions can be the key to your better life. Let's start with your working area, for example. If you feel like you need to be more motivated and productive while working from home, you should make changes, whether in your appearance or in your living space. Here's what you can try. If you need to be more motivated, less distracted, and more focused on your work, you should minimalize, organize, and clean your area. If you feel like you need to be more energized or creative, you should make your office brighter and add some color. For example, brighter and warmer hues can bring a sense of energy, whereas darker and bluer shades can have a feeling of melancholy. Well, you should also dress nicely. You can put on your favorite business casual look, do your hair and makeup, and you'll automatically notice how more excited you are for future work. And lastly, I advise to add spice to your life. You can try a new hobby or sport, or the way you do everyday tasks. How do you cook and eat soup, for example? Do you eat it straight from the pot while it's still on the stove? Well, if you do, change things up. Try a new recipe or pour your soup into a fancy tureen and serve your table as they do in restaurants. Isn't it just nice to treat yourself elegantly? Well, I tried doing all of those things too. I changed my room interior decoration and made it into a space where I can be myself. I also tried a new hobby, a new sport actually, yoga to be exact. And after every workout, I feel more refreshed and ready to do my best that day. And lastly, I now spend more time on myself. I look after my mental health a lot. And you know what? All of this happened thanks to lockdown. I had more time to think about becoming better and feeling happier. And now I'm standing in front of you, sharing this information to hopefully make your life more positive and colorful. And remember, happiness is all around. Do not miss it.
What's on your mind when you think of happiness? Pleasure, warmth, joy? You're wrong. Let me tell you why. On the one hand, the criteria of happiness are individual for each person. On the other hand, biochemically, you can take some hormones of happiness. From this point of view, biochemical means you can bring yourself to some equivalent, but this will not be happiness in the form that you dream of. There's a big difference between being truly happy and being distracted from sadness or pain. I believe that your happiness is a result of working on yourself. Work hard, work smart. We have to educate ourselves, deal with our insecurities, learn to care less what other people think of us, and more about what we think of ourselves. One truly wise person once said, if everything is completely fine in your life, then you go nowhere. You stand in one place. Life is a culmination of mistakes that we learn from. Don't hide from them. It hurts, but pain is a good teacher. On our way to happiness, we will meet with torment, misunderstanding, and rejection of ourselves. But don't forget that sad birds still sing. tough situations build strong people. A good example is Stephen Hawking. His disease made him completely immobilized, and after the surgery on his throat, he lost the ability to speak. However, this did not prevent him from marrying twice by the time he was 74, and raising 3 children, and also becoming one of the most outstanding scientists of our time. According to him, he achieved success due to his illness. Life used to seem boring, he said. I'm definitely happier now. The chance of dying earlier made me realize that life is worth living. The hardest times always lead to the greatest moments of our life. This version of me wasn't built overnight either. I'm just a kid, and I'm constantly changing. All of us will definitely face serious problems. However, I think we shouldn't be afraid of it, as the more hardships, the more happiness. And one day, we'll be proud of ourselves. You're going to be happy, said life. But first, I will make you strong. Thank you.
Holism, from Greek hol, is the idea that parts of something cannot be understood without considering the whole. Philosophers who assert the principle of holism usually base their theories on the words of Aristotle. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Another aspect of holistic approach includes the idea of Hippocrates, who viewed a human as a universal and indivisible part of the world around us. A famous philosopher Hegel once said, "Only the whole has a meaning." According to the holistic approach, it's necessary to take into account all the aspects of something instead of using a one-sided approach. In holism, the whole world and all living things in it are united. In relation to a person, holistic science considers the human body as a whole and takes into account the interconnection of all organs and systems. Human happiness should also be considered as a whole, consisting of multiple parts. All aspects of a person's life, rather than every single one, should be considered simultaneously. All human needs, including biological, social, and other ones, should be taken into account. According to the holistic approach, the state of true happiness is impossible to reach without achieving all wishes and meeting all needs. But is it true? Well, there is one idea of Pythagoras that most resonates with me. One should not chase happiness, as happiness is always inside us. This means that under the same conditions, one person can feel absolutely happy and another person completely unhappy. It depends on your attitude to the world around you and to yourself. A good example of this is the events of last year, when many people were forced to be quarantined. For many people this was a real challenge, but others used it as an opportunity to get closer to their family or just to have a small rest. These people were happy during the lockdown despite all the difficulties and hardships. I can attribute myself to this group of people. In my opinion, the holistic approach to happiness is doubtful, and now I'll explain why. Imagine that you have achieved all your desires and done everything that you wanted to do. What will you do after? Won't your life become boring after all your wishes come true? I'm sure it will. I think that we experience the true happiness in the process of pursuing our dreams, but not after achieving them. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't set ourselves high goals and then try to reach them, but we shouldn't wait for their achievement in order to become happy. I think that we should feel happiness in the present, not in the future.
To be happy then is to suffer, but suffering makes one unhappy. Therefore, to be happy, one must love, or love to suffer, or suffer from too much happiness. What a questionable statement it is. Maybe it was said by a victim survivor, or by a man who lost his hope for any better life, or maybe it was said by a religious fanatic from the Da Vinci Code. In reality, these words belong to a very established person who lived a very successful, though controversial life. These quotes belong to a world-famous comedian and one of the world's most established filmmakers, Woody Allen. When I first saw this quote,
It felt ridiculous to me. Let's be honest, who would want to suffer to get happiness when we can live a hedonist life? Hedonists are people whose main goal in life is to get as much pleasure as possible and to always be in the state of happiness. However, when I started thinking about this quote, I realized that throughout the history, there had been multiple examples when true happiness was achieved through sufferings and hardships. Michael Yurievich Lermontov, a famous Russian poet and writer, once said, "The true poet's life is hard to be imagined without sufferings, as sufferings are the source of genuine poetry. Hardships are the price they pay to their use and source of inspiration." Another cohort of people who suffer voluntarily and are even ready to suffer death are martyrs. They sacrifice their life or something of great value for the sake of happiness of other people. We can trace the mentions of martyrs from prehistoric times in all dominant world religions: Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism. Now, let's put aside all historical examples and talk about us. People who survived through the pandemic of 2020. Don't you think that we do deserve at least a little bit of happiness in our lives? As for me, I really struggled through quarantine. It was really hard for me to stay at home for months. However, I managed to set my physics class online, and it turned out to be even more convenient and comfortable for everyone to attend it than when it was offline. Now, I'm absolutely convinced that there is no true happiness without misery. The question is, if you really want happiness, are you sure you're 100% ready for it?
In today's reality, each of you has experienced stress. At school, at work, in your personal life. This is absolutely normal because we are all human beings. But if you won't start fighting stress on time, a usual problem can develop into a serious psychological illness such as depression. In this regard, you can search on the internet or any other resource available to you, methods of dealing with stress. I'm sure that the first thing you will see will be banal tips like getting good sleep, walking in the air, doing sports, and so on. But what if I say that the solution to this problem lies much closer than you think? You can fight stress through food. Did you know that to be happy, you need to feed the bacteria that live in your stomach? Seems nonsense, but let me explain. Recently, there's been a lot of research work on the topic of food psychiatry. A scientist, Felice Jacka, found out that there is a whole microbiome of bacteria in a human gut. The microbiota regulate the immune system and metabolic processes. For example, have you ever noticed that after eating fast food or sweets, you encounter fatigue and a bad mood? I've experienced this many times in my life and had no clue why I feel so if I eat tasty food. Speaking in simple language and not going into complex biological terms, the bacteria doesn't like this type of food and makes a signal to our brain which makes us feel unhappy. Now that we found one of the reasons you might be feeling sad, I would like to introduce you to a solution to this case. We need to feed the bacteria with products like probiotics and prebiotics. It is necessary because in this instance, your brain will get positive signals from your gut and you will feel much happier and healthier. These products are basic, easy to get, and all of you know them. The probiotics are mostly foods like kefir, yogurt, miso, soft cheese, or sauerkraut. They control the stress hormones and facilitate the psychological processing of emotions. The prebiotics are mostly carbohydrates, the complex carbohydrates, like fruits, vegetables, and cereals. They increase the production of serotonin and increase our overall well-being. All things considered, rational food consumption is one of the best ways to strengthen your mental health. The innovation of this idea is that with a wide variety of choices in the stores, everyone can find the right products that will make them feel much happier and healthier, while not denying themselves with the pleasure of delicious food.
Hi everyone. Before I start my speech, I would like to ask you a couple of questions. Raise your hands, please, if you're comfortable with the way you look. Thank you. Now, raise your hands if you would like to change anything in your appearance. Okay, then my speech is for you. Chasing beauty standards is extremely important. Just imagine the world with perfect people. Slim, beautiful, with small noses, plump lips, and shiny teeth. We would look so aesthetically pleasing. The Earth would be the planet of perfect human beings. But if a person looks perfect and beautiful outside, does it mean that they feel the same inside? I have watched a social experiment that was held in the USA. A few women were invited to the studio together with other people who would meet them for the first time. At first, an artist, without seeing a woman, painted her portrait while she described herself to him. Then, he painted another portrait of the same woman being described by a stranger. As a result, the first picture looked ugly, while the second one was beautiful. This experiment shows how we criticize ourselves, noticing only small, unnecessary details of our appearance which other people even don't see. I have gone through this process, drawing myself and enhancing some of my features, basically giving myself free plastic surgeries. But at the end I understood that I didn't need any of that. Now, I think that you shouldn't try to change anything in your appearance. Instead, try to appreciate and emphasize what you like about yourself. And you should always remember that you are beautiful the way you are.
Today, I'll present an instruction for those who don't have any clear plans for their future but still want to live a happy life. I believe that a well-thought-out life plan is undoubtedly important because we all deserve the best. However, sometimes such thoughtfulness of actions greatly restricts us and no longer allows us to be happy. For example, I'm going to become a pilot because I really want to become a pilot. In our country, there's an only university that trains pilots, and it is located in St. Petersburg. Therefore, in order to study here, I'll have to leave Moscow, but my friends, work, hobbies, and parents are here. Although in the future I will probably earn good money and visit many different countries, I'll miss my parents and friends whom I can see every day. Some of you might argue, you could study in Moscow, but which profession to choose if not a pilot? Wait, on the other hand, due to modern technologies, I could live here in Moscow and study in that university, because there are a lot of various flight simulators in Moscow. So, what we have to do to feel ourselves happy? A person can have a clear passion for something interesting to him, but then choose a completely different profession without having realized his dream. For example, my father has always wanted to become a zoo director. However, now he lives in Moscow, works in a bank, and lives a happy life without having realized his dream. He followed his parents' plans and didn't realize himself. Maybe he wasn't too persistent. On the other hand, you might be very lucky to be happy in the end if you live only for today without having any plan. And that's the difference between me and my father. I do have some opportunities to realize myself, but he didn't have such. So what are the steps for us to have a sort of a plan and feel happy? First thing you need is to understand what makes you happy. Perhaps understanding will come with age. Second thing you need to know is how much do you want to develop in the chosen direction and how much do you need it, because some people spend years for doing something, for learning for something, and then understand that they were engaged in an unevolved business and then spend the rest of their life to retrain for their favorite business, which is fundamentally wrong. You'll also need knowledge and advantages of modern world, which are undoubtedly useful. And the main thing you need is time, because you can't get everything at once. Within time, a person gains and loses happiness. And this is normal, because it is the search of desired happiness, which is called life. I think that a clear plan is appropriate only when a person has a clear concept of happiness. But a person is too romantic to have everything in his life arranged and sorted out. I think we have to learn to adapt to fast-changing life. The main thing is never give way to despair, but make new plans and try again. And we also have to use advantages of modern society to feel satisfied and happy. Thank you.
There is an English saying, an oak is not felled with one stroke, and I think that it perfectly suits the message I want to convey. You have to be dedicated and work hard to achieve happiness and mental harmony. Nevertheless, sometimes people fail to do that and turn to easy and artificial methods of sourcing happiness. I'm talking about different substances known as drugs. Drugs can lift a person into a fake kind of cheerfulness, but when the drug wears off, the person crashes even lower than before. And people want to feel this fake happiness again and take more drugs. This leads to an addiction, the thing that ruins people's lives. I always knew that drugs are life-threatening, but I never really paid attention to this problem. Once, a couple of years ago, I was watching some stuff on YouTube, and a strange video popped up in my recommendations. It was about a man named Connor who decided to share his story of drug addiction. He said that everything started when he was only 13 years old with weed. By the age of 17, he was already hooked on heroin. He knew that he was slowly dying, but his addiction was too strong. The only thing that mattered for Connor was a new daily dose of this terrible drug. Only after completing a rehabilitation course at 24, he understood that there is so much more in this life to appreciate. He was happy that he could finally do normal, day-to-day things that we don't even pay attention to. Now Connor is 26 and is living his life to the fullest. However, not all similar stories have such good ending as this one. That video taught me a good life lesson, that happiness is everywhere, and you can find it in small things that surround us in our everyday life. I made myself a strong promise that I would never take drugs, even the most harmless ones. However, the thing that shocked me the most is that later on I read that about 40% of high school students have tried drugs for at least once. All the teenagers are taught that drugs are bad from early age, but why do they still try them? That question made me think a lot. Some of them just want to be cool among peers because they tried something prohibited. But others take drugs to experience this new feeling of happiness, which they can't find in real life. My solution is that we should not just explain that drugs are bad. The key is to show on examples how dreadful the results of drug usage are in fact. Schools have to organize lectures about addicts, show documentaries, and organize visits to rehabilitation centers. Only after witnessing all this, teenagers will understand that the forbidden fruit is not sweet at all. Moreover, schools have to give alternatives of sourcing happiness for students. For example, today we met on an annual TED Talks contest in our school. Speaking in front of the audience and being heard gives you adrenaline, and it is always a really good source of happiness. Thank you for attention.
There's a stigma going around that we lose the ability to be happy after a certain age because people think the older we grow, the less abilities and advantages we have. But that is so wrong in many aspects. Happiness is possible at any stage of our lives. In fact, scientists believe that we're the happiest after we've reached the age of 55, as we're financially stable, our mental health is good, and we're comfortable with our appearance. Positive view of aging is associated with better overall health and emotional wellness. Undoubtedly, all of us can manage our happy lives, but we need to keep the happy hormones flowing. Therefore, we need to move around. Meditation, for example, opens our pituitary gland, which releases oxytocin, serotonin, relaxants, dopamine, and all the good happy hormones our body naturally produces. Besides, learning a new language, reading can strengthen our brain. This is important for all of us as it controls all of our actions. Fun fact, while reading, try to talk to someone about your book. This will make new neurological connections and rejuvenate your brain. A perfect example of a healthy state of mind and body is my grandma. She's in her mid-70s and she enjoys skiing, jogging, solving puzzles, and reading detective novels. This brings joy to her every day. What activities do you like?
Traveling.
Sleeping works.
And so do activities which you like, and this will make you happy. There's no better time than to start now.
I'm not lonely. I have 100,000 followers on Instagram. It is a common phrase we can hear from a lot of bloggers. I'm sure that some of you think that if you had a lot of followers, you would be happy. I will try to prove that the number of subscribers has nothing in common with happiness. On the one hand, sometimes followers can be really supportive. Popular bloggers usually open up to them, and it helps. Nowadays, many teenagers set up their blogs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and so on. There are different reasons why people start their blogs. Some of them do it just for fun, some for more serious reasons. One of them is being bullied by peers and sometimes even family. You're too fat, you have acne, you have bad grades. When the person hears such words addressed to him, he immediately starts looking for support. Some people find their support in the net. They set up a blog and think that their followers are the only people who love them. Besides, we can find a lot of new useful information in different blogs. All of you know that my classmate Chloe has a book blog. So she opened the world of the books to me and I started reading more, thanks to her blog. So she made me happier. On the other hand, blogging has a lot of disadvantages. Firstly, it takes a lot of time, money, and nerves. Secondly, popular bloggers usually don't have a proper personal life, and sometimes fans may go way too far. Thirdly, there are a lot of haters looking for how to insult a person. That's why blogging isn't the best way for consolation. Everything can become worse. For example, let us talk about a TikTok star, Kyla Strong, aka Acid Princess. Some of you might know her. She was bullied into overdosing not even once, but twice. And what do you think was the reason? Maybe she killed someone or severely abused somebody? No, she just said a slur. No, I'm not saying that what she did wasn't wrong, but I don't think that that should be a reason for making a person's life a living hell. As you can see, the internet is a very twisted place that can literally destroy a person's life. All in all, finding happiness in popularity is a rather actual thing nowadays. But we don't need to live in illusions and devote our lives to a virtual world. Have a balance, find peace in your soul, and you will be happy. Thank you.
Once, when I was visiting Sweden, I asked a taxi driver if he was satisfied with his life. He gave a negative reply. He said that taxes in Sweden were very high, and if he could, he would move to another country, for example, Denmark. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that somebody who lives in such a beautiful place as Stockholm could be unsatisfied with his life. When we plot average happiness versus average income for clusters of people in a given country at a given time, rich people are in fact a lot happier than poor people. It's actually an astonishingly large difference. There is no one single change you can imagine that would make your life improve on the happiness scale as much as to move from the bottom 5% on the income scale to the top 5%. Robert Frank. The surveys that I leaned on involved questions probing the life satisfaction or happiness. For example, the World Values Surveys asked, taking all things together, would you say you are very happy, quite happy, not at all happy, or not happy? According to the research published by the National Bureau of Economic Research in 2008, the happiest people are those who are richer than the average. For example, the people of Scandinavia are not the happiest ones. In Czech Republic, people are happier than in the United States, China, and Norway. The GPD of the United States is obviously higher than the GPD of the Czech Republic. And in Norway, the level of life is higher than in the Czech Republic. Isn't it strange? If we compare countries, there is no difference that richer countries are happier than poorer ones. In different countries, people don't usually look how great life is abroad. They compare themselves with those who live in the same countries. People feel happy when they are richer than the absolute majority of their compatriots. And partly this is one of the reasons why guest workers exist. We all want to feel happy, and in the modern society, according to the research mentioned above, money is one of the keys to happiness. No matter where you live, in America or in Russia, if you can earn more than your surroundings, you will stand out and have more opportunities. And that is what makes us happy. People do not usually look on this problem from such an angle. Today, I did it. And I tried to assure you in this fact, but it's you who decide whether I was convincing enough. Thank you for your attention.
I want to say a huge, huge thank you to all of you, because now, standing here on this red carpet, I can make a speech of what happiness is for a teacher. And you really made me feel happy, and standing here on this carpet, I feel your vibrations, your energy coming up my body from my feet. And thank you for this energy. I'm standing here thinking, could I be so successful standing on this place? And a sincere answer, I'm not sure. That's why I want to say that you are the winners today. You are the winners over many, many other teenagers who do not have these skills. And you are the winners over yourself, being before you started preparing this speech. Because this is a huge experience, and the skills you have acquired during preparing and speaking today cannot be measured. They're so important in your life. And my separate thanks to the 8th graders who did it for the first time and did it fantastically.